The moment he hit delete, I knew the company was already dead. Not metaphorically, not eventually. Dead. I didn't shout. I didn't even move. I just watched the terminal flicker, lines of green text confirming what no one else in that room understood. 5 years of architecture didn't disappear with the code. It disappeared with the knowledge of why it existed. "Relax," Ryan said, leaning back like he just improved something. That was the moment I stopped being their engineer and started becoming their competition. I've always believed you can tell the health of a company by the silence in its server room. At Nexora Logistics, the servers didn't scream. They hummed. Clean, stable, predictable. The kind of sound you only get when systems are built right. I built those systems. My name is Ethan Cole, 32, 6 feet tall, lean from too many skipped meals and too many late nights. Dark hair I forgot to cut more often than I should, and a permanent crease between my eyebrows from staring at logs at 3 a.m. People at Nexora said I was calm under pressure. They didn't know that calm came from control. And I only trusted what I understood, code. "Ethan, you're doing it again." I glanced up from my screen. Emily stood in the doorway of my apartment, arms crossed. She was a UX designer, sharp, observant, with warm brown eyes that missed nothing. Late 20s, effortless style, the kind of person who could read a room in seconds. She hated how often I disappeared into mine. "It's Sunday," she said. "You promised." "I just need to check one thing." "You always just need to check one thing." She wasn't wrong. Monday morning, Nexora felt different. Too clean, too rehearsed. People were whispering in clusters. Slack was unusually quiet. That's never a good sign in a tech company. Lucas practically ran into me near my desk. "Ethan, hey!" He pushed his glasses up nervously. Lucas was 21, thin, slightly hunched from years of coding, with an anxious energy that never quite settled. Brilliant, though. The kind of kid who could solve problems faster than he could explain them. "You ready for your Google interview?" I asked. He nodded, then hesitated. "Yeah, thanks to you." I clapped his shoulder. "You did the work." He lowered his voice. "Hey, is it true? About the CTO?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The email came 5 minutes later. Subject: Leadership Update. We gathered in the conference room. Glass walls, too exposed. That's when I saw him. Ryan Blake, 27. Perfect suit. Too perfect. Blonde hair styled like he had a personal brand manager. Tall, athletic build, but not the kind that comes from building things, the kind that comes from having time. His smile was polished, practiced. His eyes weren't. He didn't look at the system diagrams on the screen. He looked at the people. "My dad believes in fresh perspectives," Ryan said smoothly, "and I believe in simplification." I felt something tighten in my chest. Simplification. He clicked to the next slide. My architecture. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. He wasn't curious. He wasn't cautious. He was confident. That's always the dangerous type. And as he started talking about cleaning up complexity, I realized something unsettling. He didn't understand what he was looking at. The room didn't empty after the meeting. It lingered, like people were waiting for something to go wrong. They didn't have to wait long. Ryan stood at the front, sleeves rolled just enough to suggest effort, though his hands were too clean to belong to someone who had ever debugged a production issue at 2 a.m. "Let's do something bold," he said, pacing lightly. "We're over-engineered. We simplify, we move faster." I stayed seated, arms crossed. "Define simplify." He smiled like I'd asked the wrong question. "We remove unnecessary layers." My stomach dropped. "Core bridge." "Ryan," I said, voice steady, "that layer is handling request routing, caching, failover." "Exactly," he cut in. "Too much happening in one place." Lucas shifted beside me. I could feel it before I saw it, his discomfort. He kept glancing at the screen, then at me, like he was watching a car about to crash but didn't know how to shout. At the back of the room, Sarah leaned against the wall, arms folded. Sarah Mitchell, early 30s, short dark hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. DevOps lead. She dressed like she didn't care, hoodie, jeans, but she ran infrastructure like a military operation. She didn't speak often, but when she did, people listened. "Ryan," she said, calm but firm, "Core Bridge is tied to auto-scaling and load balancing. You touch that, you destabilize everything." Ryan barely glanced at her. "Noted." Not understood, not respected, just noted. He walked over to the console mirrored on the main screen. My chest tightened. "Let's clean it up," he said. "Don't," I said, sharper now. "That's production." He hesitated for half a second, just enough to prove he knew there was risk. Then he clicked. Highlight. Delete. The directory vanished. The room went silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the faint click of keys as he committed the change. "Push." Lucas whispered, almost to himself, That's not isolated." He knew. Of course he knew. I stood up slowly. "You just removed the routing logic." Ryan exhaled like he'd just finished decluttering a messy room. "We'll rebuild cleaner." Sarah pushed off the wall. "There's no fallback." I moved to my terminal, pulling logs. Errors hadn't started yet, but they would. Systems like this didn't fail instantly. They unraveled. "Rollback," I said. "Now." Ryan shook his head. "No, we move forward." I kept scanning. Something felt off. "Where's the last backup?" I asked. Sarah didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. "Weekly rotation," she said finally. "Last snapshot. Corrupted." "How?" She glanced at Ryan. "Budget cuts. Storage tier downgrade." Of course. I stared at the screen, at the empty space where Core Bridge used to be. 5 years of logic, gone in seconds. And for the first time since I joined Nexora, I didn't feel in control. The first alert came 7 minutes after the deletion, then another, then 20 more. By the time I reached my desk, the monitoring dashboard looked like it was bleeding. Red blocks cascading across every service tied to Core Bridge. Latency spiked, requests timed out, authentication failures stacked like falling dominoes. "Ethan!" Lucas's voice trembled behind me. I didn't turn. "I know." Slack exploded. Channels that were usually quiet turned into war zones, messages overlapping, engineers tagging each other in panic. API down? Auth failing? Rollback? The word rollback appeared again and again like a prayer no one could answer. Sarah was already at her station, typing fast, her posture rigid. "Autoscaler's going crazy," she said without looking up. "It's spawning new instances, but they're all pulling the broken build." "Infinite loop," I muttered. "Yeah, and AWS is going to love us for it." I pulled up the logs. Error rates climbing, memory thrashing. It wasn't a crash, it was a cascade. Ryan walked out of his glass office like none of this belonged to him. His expression was tight, controlled, but I could see it, the first crack. "What's going on?" he asked. I stared at him. "You deleted the routing layer." He exhaled sharply. "Then fix it." There it was. Not we, not how. Just fix it. "I can't," I said. "Not without a rollback, and we don't have a clean backup." Silence. Slack notifications kept popping like distant gunfire. Ryan's jaw tightened. "So you're saying this is your system, and you can't fix it?" Lucas stepped forward slightly, then stopped himself. His hands were shaking. "It wasn't," he started, then fell silent. I didn't need him to finish. Ryan turned to the room. "Everyone out except Ethan." People hesitated, then filed out quickly, eyes avoiding mine. The door shut. Ryan faced me, arms crossed. "You built something too fragile." I let out a short, humorless breath. "No, I built something you didn't understand." His eyes hardened. "Watch your tone." "You broke production," I said flatly, "and you're responsible for keeping it running." There it was, the pivot. Blame. "You're done here," he said, effective immediately. For a second, the noise outside the room felt distant, like I was underwater. 5 years, reduced to a sentence. I nodded once. "Good luck." I packed slowly. Keyboard, notebook, nothing else. My phone buzzed. "Lucas." "I'm sorry, I should have said something." I typed back. "You'll learn." Another message came in as I stepped into the elevator. "Emily, come home, please. Just stop for a while. I leaned against the mirrored wall, watching my reflection, tired but strangely calm. Above me, somewhere, Nyxora was still burning. And for the first time, it wasn't my job to put it out. The city felt louder when you had nowhere to go. I walked out of Nyxora with a box that didn't weigh much, but felt heavier than anything I'd carried in years. Chicago wind cut through my jacket, sharp and cold, like it was trying to wake me up. My phone buzzed before I reached the corner. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Ethan Cole? The voice was smooth, controlled. This is Daniel Mercer from Atlas Systems. I stopped walking. Daniel Mercer, I knew the name. Late 30s, tall, always seen in tailored suits that fit too well to be off the rack. Former engineer turned executive, known for being precise, calculated, and brutally efficient. The kind of person who didn't waste time unless there was something worth taking. I've reviewed your work, he continued. We were in the middle of acquiring Nyxora. You were the only part that made sense. I let out a quiet breath. That's no longer their problem. I heard, he said, no surprise in his tone. That's why I'm calling. A black sedan passed, its reflection sliding across the glass buildings around me. For a moment I saw myself, standing between two worlds. We're building something new, Daniel said, and we need the person who built the system everyone else depended on. I didn't answer immediately. Loyalty is a strange thing. It doesn't disappear when people deserve it. It lingers when they don't. My team, I said finally. They're still there. And they're still dealing with the fallout of a decision you didn't make, Daniel replied. You can't fix that from the outside. He wasn't wrong. Another vibration. This time Sarah. A file. Logs. I opened it. Error traces. Deployment history. Timestamps. Her signature at the bottom. Short. Efficient. No message. She didn't need one. This was her way of saying, it's worse than you think. Ethan, Daniel said, voice steady. We're not offering you a job. We're offering you ownership, architecture, control. Control. That word landed differently. I thought of the red dashboards, of Lucas, frozen, of Ryan pretending confidence was competence. Then Emily. I found her waiting when I got home, sitting cross-legged on the couch, laptop closed for once. She looked up immediately, reading my face the way she always did. You're done, she said softly. I nodded. She stood, walked over and placed a hand on my chest. Then start something better. No hesitation, no anger, just clarity. I looked at my phone. Daniel was still on the line. When do you need an answer? I asked. A small pause, then, yesterday. I smiled for the first time that day. I'm in. I wasn't in the room when Nyxora tried to save itself, but I didn't need to be. By then, I was sitting in a quiet conference space at Atlas Systems. Glass walls, minimalist design, everything intentional. No noise, no chaos. Just control. Daniel stood across from me, arms folded, watching a live internal feed from the demo review team. He didn't look tense. He looked curious. They're still going through with it, he said. Of course they are, I replied. Across the screen, I recognized the room instantly. Nyxora's main conference space. Same table, same projector, different energy. Lucas stood near the back wall, shoulders hunched, laptop clutched like a shield. His eyes darted between Ryan and the screen. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, movements slower like he hadn't slept in days. Ryan stood at the front. He looked different too. Same tailored suit but wrinkled now, hair slightly out of place. Confidence replaced by something thinner, fragile. He clicked through slides too fast, talking more than usual. That's not good, Daniel muttered. On screen the demo loaded, fast, too fast. I leaned forward slightly. Static. Daniel glanced at me. You're sure? No back-end calls, no latency, it's fake. At Nyxora, Sarah sat near the side, laptop open, fingers hovering but not typing. Even from the grainy feed I could see it. She was done. Pushed too far. Probably hadn't left the office in 24 hours. Her posture was rigid, jaw tight. The kind of stillness that comes right before someone walks away for good. Ryan clicked deeper into the system. Lucas shifted again. His foot tapped uncontrollably. "Don't," I whispered, even though he couldn't hear me. A voice from Atlas's side cut in. Mark Reynolds, VP of Product. Early 40s, broad-shouldered, clean-cut. The kind of man who asked simple questions that destroyed complicated lies. "Can you filter by last quarter's data?" Mark asked calmly. Ryan froze, just for a second. Then he smiled. "Of course." He clicked. Nothing. Another click. The screen flickered. Then, error. A blank page. No data. No recovery. Silence. Even through the feed I could feel it. Lucas closed his eyes. Sarah leaned back. Ryan started talking, fast, defensive, words overlapping. Something about network issues, caching delays. It didn't matter. Mark didn't interrupt. He just watched. Then he closed his notebook. "We've seen enough," he said. The feed cut. Daniel looked at me. "That's it." I nodded once. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just inevitability. 5 years of work hadn't failed. It had been removed. The first thing I noticed at Atlas wasn't the technology. It was the silence. Not the kind that comes from fear, but the kind that comes from focus. My new workspace overlooked the city, glass walls catching the morning light. No clutter, no noise, just a clean desk, a powerful machine, and a problem worth solving. Daniel stood beside me, hands in his pockets. "You build it your way," he said. "No shortcuts." I nodded. That was all I needed. The architecture came back to me fast, not as a copy of what I built at Nexora, but as something better. Cleaner abstractions, decoupled services, no legacy compromises. I wasn't patching anymore. I was designing. A week in, I made my first hires. Lucas arrived early, standing awkwardly outside the office like he wasn't sure he belonged. Same thin frame, same nervous energy, but something had changed. Less hesitation in his eyes. "You sure about this?" he asked me quietly. "I wouldn't have called you if I wasn't." He nodded, gripping his laptop tighter. "I won't freeze this time." "I know," I said. Sarah came in 2 days later. She looked exactly the same hoodie, same sharp gaze, but there was something lighter about her, like she had finally stepped out of a burning building. "Your autoscaler design," she said without greeting, dropping her bag on the table. "We're rewriting it." I smirked. "Already ahead of you." She gave a small nod. That was approval in Sarah's language. The team started to take shape quickly. Smaller than Nexora, but sharper. No noise, no politics. Just people who understood what they were building. For the first time in years, I wasn't firefighting. I was leading. Not by control, but by clarity. That took some getting used to. Emily noticed it before I did. "You're home before midnight," she said one evening, handing me a plate of food. "Who are you and what have you done with my boyfriend?" She stood there in soft light, hair tied loosely, wearing one of my old hoodies. Relaxed, present. She had always been grounded, growing up with a single mother, learning early how to build stability from nothing. That's why she hated chaos. That's why she stayed. "I think I finally stopped fixing things that weren't mine to fix," I said. She smiled. "Good." Back at Atlas, the system began to take form. Fast. Requests processed in milliseconds. Load distributed intelligently. No unnecessary layers, only intentional ones. Lucas pushed his first stable module without hesitation. Sarah signed off on infrastructure without rewriting everything. And me? I stopped watching every line of code. I started trusting the people writing it. That was new. That was leadership. I didn't expect to walk back into Nexora. But some systems don't end when companies do. The building looked smaller than I remembered. The logo was gone from the glass entrance, leaving behind a faint outline, like a scar. Inside, the lights were dim, half the desks empty, monitors unplugged. It didn't feel like a company anymore. It felt like aftermath. A man in a wrinkled suit approached me near reception. Mid-40s, slightly overweight, tie loosened, eyes tired but alert. "Ethan Cole?" he asked, extending a hand. "David Lynn, court-appointed restructuring officer." I shook it. His grip was firm, practical. "You're here about the data, right?" I nodded. "Clients are demanding records, transactions, logistics history, compliance logs. We know it's in there." He gestured vaguely toward the darkened office. but no one can access it. Of course they couldn't. Core systems gone, backups fragmented, and the encryption keys. I followed him deeper inside. The silence was heavy. We passed the old conference room. I didn't stop, but I felt it, the memory of that day still lingering in the walls. "Mr. Blake is waiting," David said. The CEO's office door was open. He stood by the window. Mr. Blake looked older, not just tired, smaller somehow. Late 50s, once imposing, now slightly hunched, gray hair thinning at the temples. His suit hung looser, like he had lost weight too quickly. He turned slowly when I entered. "Ethan," he said. No title, no distance, just my name. "Sir," I replied. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. Not defensive, not strategic, just honest. I didn't respond. Some things don't need answers. "Ryan is gone," he added. "Left the company the day after the deal collapsed." I nodded once. That told me everything I needed to know. We moved to a workstation, old systems still running on backup power. I connected my laptop, fingers moving instinctively. The structure was familiar, even in its broken state. Encryption layers, access controls, still mine. Back at Atlas, Lucas was on call. "Lucas," I said over the line, "I'm going to need you to handle production monitoring solo for a bit." A pause, then, "Got it." No hesitation. That was new. I initiated the recovery process, slowly, carefully. Data began to surface, logs, transactions, client records. Not perfect, but enough. Behind me, I heard Mr. Blake exhale. Relief. Not for the company, for the people. I shut down the terminal and stood. "That should cover your obligations," I said. He nodded. "Thank you." I didn't say you're welcome. I didn't need to. As I walked out, I realized something. I wasn't fixing Nexora. I was closing it. Success is quieter than failure. There's no chaos, no shouting, no emergency alerts lighting up your phone at 3 a.m., just a steady rhythm, the kind that tells you everything is working exactly as it should. Atlas didn't celebrate loudly when the system went live. We just watched it run. Clean metrics, stable load, sub-millisecond latency across critical services. No spikes, no surprises, just flow. I stood in the control room, hands in my pockets, looking at the dashboard. Not obsessing over it, just observing. That was new. Lucas stood beside me, posture straighter than I'd ever seen it. He'd filled out over the past few months, not physically, but in presence. His voice didn't shake anymore. His decisions didn't hesitate. "Traffic's holding steady," he said. "We just passed peak load projections." I nodded. "Good." He glanced at me. "You're not going to double-check?" I smiled slightly. "You already did." That was the moment he became more than the intern I once mentored. He became a senior engineer. Across the room, Sarah leaned against a desk, reviewing logs with the same sharp focus, but without the tension she used to carry. She caught my eye and gave a small nod. No words, just confirmation. Everything was under control, and for once I believed it. That night I didn't go back to the office. I went home. Emily opened the door before I could knock, like she always knew when I was there. She looked the same, calm, grounded, but happier somehow. Less like she was waiting for me to come back from somewhere I kept disappearing into. "It worked," I said. "I know," she replied. "You're home." We sat on the couch, no laptops, no distractions. Just silence, the good kind. I reached into my pocket. The ring wasn't elaborate, simple, intentional. Like everything I'd learned to value. "Emily," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I spent a long time building things that worked, but not a life that did." She didn't interrupt. "I think I know how to do both now." I opened the box. She smiled before I even finished the question. "Yes." Weeks later, Atlas expanded faster than we planned. Not because we rushed, because we built it right. I didn't check every line anymore. I didn't need to. The team didn't depend on me to function. They worked with me to grow. That was the difference. Leadership wasn't about being indispensable. It was about making sure you weren't. I looked out over the city from my office, the same skyline, but a different perspective. No anger, no regret, just clarity. Build things that last, and build people who can carry them forward. So now I want to ask you something. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you stay loyal to a company that no longer respects your work? Or walk away and build something better somewhere else? Would you fight to fix a system someone else broke? Or let it fail so the truth finally shows itself? And when everything collapses, do you hold on to anger? Or move forward and build something stronger? There's no perfect answer, only the one you choose to live with. So tell me, what would you choose? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoy stories like this, real tension, real consequences, real growth, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because the next story might be even crazier.